So I put out a video on Scourge a couple of days ago, and now I'm going to look at his faction, called the Terracons. Now the first thing to note is that this will be the first movie where Scourge is the leader of the Terracons. He has led his own group called the Sweeps, and also been second in command to Megatron in 2001's Robots in Disguise. But traditionally, the Terracons have been an animalistic group of combiners, sort of an equivalent to the Dinobots, or more specifically, the Technobots, if you want to get technical. That was almost funny. Now it's already clear that Rise of the Beasts is reorganizing things here and making up the group of a black skyline called Nightbird and Battletrap, but I'll talk about those more later. First, let's take a look at the history of the Terracons and see if there's any elements that they might keep in Rise of the Beasts. So traditionally, they're comprised of Hunger, who's a two-headed dragon, who, you guessed it, is constantly hungry, and lives by the motto, eat only what you need, destroy the rest.
Oh yeah.
Sinatwin, another this time yellow-headed two-headed dragon, Blot, which is whatever this is, Cutthroat, which is a sort of a pterosaur, and Rippersnapper, a land shark. I think I read somewhere ages ago that Rippersnapper got voted the worst ever Transformer design, just because, land shark. And although I don't find it particularly great myself, I would say the worst ever one for me would have to be Skylynx. He's a talking space shuttle dog. Just no. Anyway, the main thing about the Terracons, character-wise, is that they're hugely animalistic, and therefore kind of basic, often referring to each other's bad hygiene or disgusting attributes. For example, Hunger can throw up what he's eaten and fire it back at an enemy as a projectile. That's gross. The Terracons can combine into Abominus, who again is more brawn than brain, and whose commanders have to simplify every single command they give him, and often just have to turn him loose and let him go smash everything. You go have fun, buddy.
Abominus smash, baby.
Abominus often comes into conflict with the combined version of the Technobots, called Computron, who's the opposite and a combiner that's really, really smart. Now, as I said, Computron is comprised of the Technobots, who were made by Grimlock when he was temporarily granted temporary superintelligence temporarily, and as a result, are super intelligent themselves.
My name's Strafe!
Good for you, buddy. The superintelligence obviously wore off on Grimlock, but luckily not on them.
Me, Grimlock, don't wipe my ass to save toilet paper. Me, Grimlock, smart.
Now, in the IDW Megatron Origins, which I'm planning to get round to at some point, Hunger and Blot were fighters in Megatron's illegal fighting tournament, and this was before the formation of the Decepticons. But that's pretty much as good as an origin story as we get, as far as I'm aware, because usually their origin story is completely glossed over, with them just appearing in the first episode of G1, and it never being explained where they came from or what their backstory is. Which was strange, because most of the other special teams at least got some sort of, mention or explanation. In another episode of Gen 1, they were suddenly working for the Quintessence, although it was never explained why. In that episode, though, we saw how the Quintessence had a time limit installed on him, that Abominus could only stay in combined mode for a certain amount of time as a way of controlling him to make sure he didn't turn on them, I guess. But then after this, the characters were kind of forgotten about for a while, and it really feels like they were never properly explored or made use of. Anyway, in their next incarnation in Transformers Energon, they were an army of mindless drone robots, commanded by Scorponok. They took the form of jaguars that look kind of like Ravage, hawks that look kind of like Razorbeak, and these dinosaur-shaped ones that look kind of like dinosaurs, and these beetle insects that also look like beetles. And they were sent out into space to find and collect Energon. They've also been portrayed in the comics as a group of rogue Decepticons, unhappy with the Autobot Decepticon piece that had fallen over Cybertron. Kind of like the Marquis. I haven't thought about Star Trek for a while. Oh, you know what I just thought of? Let me know if I should do a video on that. Anyway, in Transformers timelines, and I don't know if this is the same as Shattered Glass or not.
It's not.
Thanks.
Always happy to point out when you're wrong.
I know. The Terracons are shown in an alternate reality in which the Autobots are evil and the Decepticons are good.
My name's Strafe!
I guess Strafe is still Strafe. Their merged form, Abominus, is the polar opposite of his evil counterpart, and he's an intellectual devoted to preserving culture. Then, the Terracons took on the form of the resurrected Cybertronians, who were raised from the dead using Dark Energon in Transformers Prime. Now, interestingly enough, if you remember Prime, Cliffjumper, who died in the very first episode, was resurrected as a Terracon by Megatron, when Megatron was experimenting with the properties of Dark Energon, and later, Skyquake was too. Now, I haven't seen Power of the Primes yet, so I don't know if the Terracons are in that, but I do know that the Terracons at least returned in toy form. I'm really surprised that some third party hasn't made like a novelty transformer that transforms into a dildo. Like the way the world is, it blows my mind that hasn't happened yet. Anyway, so that's a brief history of the characters, and we have no idea if any of this will carry over into Rise of the Beasts. By the look of it, it won't. And the Terracons will be a whole new outfit, perhaps devoted to carrying out terrorism missions behind enemy lines or something like that. And if you're expecting these guys to combine into Abominus, well, I wouldn't hold my breath. It's not impossible, I just find it unlikely. Like if you think about it, all of the other combiner teams, the Constructicons, the Stunticons, the Technobots, the Aerial Bots? Is it Aerial Bots that make up Superion? I can't remember. They all have like a common theme, and these guys just don't. But let's talk a little bit about the characters that they are using. The Black Skyline is Nightbird, and this is kind of an obscure character as I understand it. I'd never heard of her before. She was created by a scientist called Dr. Fukuyama as a showpiece demonstrating the current state of human technology. Ooh, look how advanced we are. We can make killing machines that are even more effective than us. Surely we'd never be that stupid. Now up until this point, she was pretty much just a drone until she was stolen by the Decepticons and implanted with an intelligence chip. Now, the most interesting thing about her to me is that Megatron supposedly fell in love with her. Now, this has been up for debate and has ignited loads of fan flame wars, but I wonder if this is something that might get carried over. Has Megatron ever had a romantic interest? Not that I can think of. And you know what? Maybe that's for the best. It just wouldn't feel right. But whatever your opinion on this, Starscream got really jealous and ended up shooting her in the back just because Megatron was giving her more praise than him, which allowed the Autobots to capture her. But once that was all over and done with, Fujiyama removed all of her programming and put her into storage, learning the errors of his no, he didn't. He only went and created an army of the f***s, and young Daniel Witwicky here had to sacrifice himself to blow them all up. As an aside, this prompted RC to fall into a deep depression and generally becoming a more darker version of herself before she joined the Wreckers. Another interesting thing is that Nightbird was actually the first female robot. I found that difficult to believe when I heard it, because I really thought RC would have been. But no, and that's about all we've ever seen from Nightbird. Travis Knight, the director of Bumblebee and Rise of the Beasts, stated that Nightbird was the inspiration for Shatter in the Bumblebee movie. Could there be something in that? Could Shatter be rebuilt in a new, darker form? Although, I doubt there would be much left to rebuild after this. Anyway, let's talk about the last Terracon that we currently know of, and that's Battletrap. Now, originally, this guy used to be a Duocon, which is one single robot that splits into two vehicles, and is one of Shockwave's earliest experiments to create a transformer with two vehicle modes. He served under the command of Scorponok in a battle against Fortress Maximus, among other things, and under the command of Bludgeon. He was at one point a part of a squad called the Mayhem Attack Squad, which joined forces with the Autobot Wreckers to take down Galvatron. But apparently in the battle, he was one of the first to be killed, having his chest torn open before being smashed against a wall. Harsh. I think this is even his head here. And beyond a few other adventures where he doesn't particularly stand out in any way, I couldn't really find that much on him. I just can't. Why did I say it like that? I don't know, but I just can't. Okay guys, I'm gonna leave it there. Please let me know if I've missed anything on the Terracons in the comments below. And I will see you very soon for the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and cheerio, bye!